get started here. I think a few more people will be coming in as we get going. But welcome to our webinar today, Salesforce versus Microsoft Dynamics, which CRM is right for your business. And we're joined by three of our CRM experts this morning, Anash Wadia, our Director of Salesforce Solutions, Mike Ehrenherster-Baumer, our Senior Business Development Manager, and Rocky Magana, the Manager of Microsoft Dynamics. So to tell you just a little bit about our company before we jump in today, for more than 3 decades, we've been providing a variety of expert IT services to hundreds of businesses in countless industries. And at XTIVIA, we like to say, if you can imagine the business outcome, XTIVIA can create it with technology. And here you can see some of the technology and services we offer. In addition to CRM, we do stuff across the board. So if you have any questions about any of our other offerings, please reach out. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Mike to tell you a little bit about CRM.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your busy Thursday to join us this morning. So as Alex said, I'm Mike Ehrenherster-Baumer. I'm one of the Senior Business Development Managers here with XTIVIA. I've actually been with the company over 13 years now, selling our CRM services and working with our great team that we have here at XTIVIA. So just a little bit of background on our CRM expertise. We have been providing CRM services, support, software in some cases, since 1997. So really for over 25 years now, we've been in this space. And the one thing to really kind of call out is we are an organization that tries to be there for every step of the process with you, right? So from the very early stages of a lot of kind of what we're talking about today, right? And helping select what might be the right platform for your organization. And then once that's done, kind of ironing out your use cases, why you're doing this, what's the purpose, what are the goals, what are the wins you're seeking, and actually building that system out for you, but then also providing everything after the fact too, right? The ongoing support, ongoing development. We always look at CRM as it's not a one trick pony. It's not a one-stop shop where you're doing an implementation and you're done. It's an ever evolving business initiative, right? Your business changes, your needs change, your requirements change, and that's always an ongoing process that we try to tag team with you and be a part of that process from start to finish years down the road. And so one of the other things that we like to mention with that, have never been an organization that strictly focuses on one platform, one CRM, right? We've always come from the background and the thinking that, a lot of these CRMs do 80-90% of the same things, which we'll talk about today. But there are things that make these platforms different. And for a number of different reasons for your organization, one platform may be a better fit than the other, right? So while you see here that, our focus as an organization today is around Salesforce and is around Microsoft Dynamics, we've been doing this for 25 plus years. And so over that time, we've really worked with probably 10 to 15 different of the major CRM platforms throughout that time, whether it was Sage Sales Logics, which then became Infor CRM, or it was Sage CRM, or Sugar CRM, HubSpot, Monday.com we do work with. So we really come from a strong background of we know this industry very well, and we like to bring that expertise to you because it is an important decision, and one that you want to get right the first time, right? So trying to help you make that decision is really where we start and help carry you through the rest of that process. So, but as we're here to discuss, the ones that we focus on today are Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics. So go ahead, Alex. So some of the things we're going to talk about today, folks, is it's Salesforce versus Dynamics is kind of how we're phrasing this, right? Is how we're framing this presentation. But what about that, right? That's a pretty broad term. So why are we talking Salesforce for Dynamics? What about it? What even are they, right? So some of the things that we're going to be kind of calling out today are, what are some of those core features and functionalities of these platforms, right? What's the difference in potential cost? How do these things scale as your business grows or your business needs changes, right? If, you have some crazy use case, like these aren't even just CRMs, they're entire platforms, right? They can really touch every aspect of your business as an organization. So how extensible are they? How customizable are they, right? We're going to talk about some of the industry type focus that these products have really taken over the last, I would say, probably 4 or 5 years, right? It used to be much more broad, and now they're really getting into an industrialized view on these products. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about some real world situations, right? So again, we've been working with these products for a number of years now with clients in all different shapes and sizes, all different industries. So we just are going to take a couple of minutes to tell you about both on the Salesforce side and the Dynamics side as to some of those use cases that we help solve, right? And then finally, really not necessarily having to do with Salesforce or Dynamics, but just what are some of the things that you should account for? What are some of the best practices you should put in place as an organization if you are about to go through this process and select a brand new CRM, which may be a brand new initiative as an organization that you've never had before. Excel may be your current CRM, or somebody that has had a CRM for years and is ready to ramp up, change their business, change up, get with something more modern. So we're going to talk about some of those best practices today as well. So, all right. So really kind of the first thing, folks, and this is where, Alex introduced them earlier, but this is where you're going to speak to the experts. I've been doing this a while, but I am not the one that's ever going to get under the hood and touch your system. That's asking for a disaster, right? That's why we have our experts. So Anash Wadia is really more of his Salesforce background. He heads up our Salesforce team of developers and experts. He'll be kind of speaking about the Salesforce side. Rocky Magana, who Alex mentioned before, runs our Microsoft Dynamics team of experts. So he'll be kind of speaking from his background and his expertise and thoughts around Dynamics. So really, just from kind of a functionality perspective, let's start there, right? I always try to make this very clear when I'm talking to clients, potential clients, networking, whatever it might be. And it really is true. These tools, Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics, really do 90% of the same things, right? They look different, obviously, because they're completely different platforms and technology stacks, but they really do 90% of the same things. So what is that last 10%, right? That's really where these things start to separate themselves. And it's not even to separate themselves that it may make one better than the other, but it may make one better than the other for your organization, right? So Anash, I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, you've been working with Salesforce now for 15 plus years. What are some of those key differentiators that make Salesforce your choice that you might recommend many times for a potential client?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So a good thing to point out, and thanks everybody for joining today. A good thing to point out is that Salesforce evolved and was built and evolved as a cloud-based platform, right? It was never an on-premise platform. So it was always built and designed as an entirely cloud-based platform. And that ensured that it works seamlessly for the cloud. It has performance built in. It's easy to use with a web interface and designed around a web interface. So that's a big factor for where Salesforce really ends up winning in some ways over Microsoft in terms of the UI, in terms of performance, in terms of speed. Now, with that being said, bear in mind that with all the pros, there are some cons, right? So with Salesforce, you do have to live within its limits or confine within its limits, right? So if you have some really large data sets, there are specific ways you have to implement Salesforce to handle massive data sets and massive data processing. Not that it's not possible, it just adds another layer of complexity. So so those are the key areas, I would say: UI improvements, ease of reporting, dashboarding. Customization is much easier in some ways because the interface was, again, designed and built from scratch for the web client, right? And that's what you tend to see on the overall side. The other big aspect I will touch upon is that the App Exchange for Salesforce is vast. They actually developed the App Exchange before Apple came out with the App Exchange. And the funny story is that They originally owned appstore.com, and he finally, Mark Benioff gave it away to Steve Jobs after it was Steve Jobs' idea to Mark Benioff to actually go create an app exchange out there. So Salesforce then relabeled the App Store to App Exchange. Anyway, that's just a little bit of history. But my point is, though, just like you have an app store on your phone, there is an App Exchange out for Salesforce with literally thousands of apps out there which you can just tie into Salesforce. Many of them free, some freemium, and some are paid. But the key point is they made sure that their platform is integratable and customizable and can be adapted to any use case. So even though Salesforce may not have it natively, you can go out to the App Exchange, get an app for it, plug it in, and make it work for your organization. So those are the key benefits of Salesforce.
Awesome.
Rocky, yeah.
So Nash, Rocky, it's your turn now. So what would you say to that, right? So what makes Microsoft Dynamics, in your opinion? What are some of those differentiators where it's like, hey, we're talking about these two platforms. This would be a really good fit for Dynamics because of what? And it could be a number of different things in your mind.
Yeah, I think it all starts with kind of what we have here on the screen with the Microsoft backing. It's a household name that a lot of people understand and recognize. And with that, it means there's a lot of businesses that are already utilizing Microsoft clients, whether it be Outlook, SharePoint, something like that. And one thing that Microsoft is focused on is unifying its user experience or its UI across the entire platform and all of their things. So if your users are already accustomed to maybe using Outlook or SharePoint or another Microsoft product, the Dynamics interface and the UI to that's going to be something that's very familiar to them. That's going to help with user adoption, right? Along with that, Microsoft also has a huge extensibility of all of its different applications that all are 100% integrated with Dynamics, right? And so there's an out-of-the-box SharePoint integration for file repositories. There's an out-of-the-box Outlook integration where you can sync and track your emails directly into it. Along with that, Microsoft has really gone heavy into the future of AI with Copilot, and they are integrating Copilot into nearly everything. And while AI and the Copilot integration is still in its infancy stages, it's something that is a constantly changing thing, and they're constantly adding new capabilities to it. One in particular is whether you're using the cloud-based, desktop computer for Dynamics, or whether you're accessing it on your mobile device. There's an out-of-the-box business card scanner whenever you create a new contact, where you can just scan a business card and it's going to automatically import that data straight in and create a contact automatically, right? And that's just like one of the ways that Microsoft is utilizing artificial intelligence to integrate it within the platform. Along with that, there's also ways it's highly customizable. There's a thing called Canvas apps where Microsoft allows you to build your own application that's based upon your Dynamics data or the Dataverse data, and you can configure the UI 100% to however you want it to look. And now these apps are more maybe limited case scenarios, like maybe you're having a fundraiser and you want to have a form that somebody comes in and fills out, and it creates a contact automatically whenever somebody fills out that form. That's something that you can do within Dynamics because it's 100% customizable with these Canvas apps. The other great thing is that it leverages Azure's security structure, right? It has Microsoft security structure, which is GCC compliant, it's Department of Defense compliant, it's HIPAA compliant, right? Across the board. And the data that is stored there is stored within the Dataverse, which means that it's all stored in one centralized location. So regardless of how many applications you have, you can access the data seamlessly across the entire platform.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. I have to say, I don't know who wins yet. You both stated a pretty good case for each side of the house. So good start. But all right. Thanks, Alex. I'm gonna go to the next slide. All right. So in all honesty, folks, I'm probably just going to take this slide myself because this is usually conversations that I more lead. But let's talk pricing, right? And when we talk pricing, really we're focused on at this moment on the software side of the house, the licensing aspect, right? Because being that Salesforce has always been a cloud product, right? Microsoft still offers some on-premise options for Dynamics, but again, just like every other major company in the world, their future is cloud, right? But with that, so obviously, if you're familiar with, cloud spending and how it works, it is an ongoing cost, right? It's either a monthly ongoing cost or an annual cost, usually by a per user type engagement. So where does the price fall for each of these products, right? So if you were to go on Salesforce's website right now, if you were to go on Microsoft Dynamics' website right now, there's a number of different SKUs, right? That all fall under, we'll call it customer engagement, CRM, customer relationship management, whatever term you'd like to classify, right? But there's different use cases for, hey, this is for our sales team. This is for our customer service team. This is for our marketing team, whatever it might be, our project management team. There's a number of different SKUs out there. What we're kind of showing on the screen here is really the most typical use case that we deal with, and I would say is most common just across business, right? So not only do they have like a sales focused product, a customer service focused product, and so on and so forth, they also have different levels, right? There's a professional version and there's an enterprise version, right? Salesforce even has some other ones that we won't talk about, but they have additional ones too. So it's really professional versus enterprise. The difference is based on the product. If you get the professional, you may have some not quite as much functionality available to you as you would the enterprise, right? So the enterprise is really what makes most sense for customers, most of our customers, even if it might not make sense right out of the gate, before you know it, they're going to need it, right? So it's just the one that we come across most. So when you look at the enterprise version of Salesforce versus the enterprise version of Dynamics, and you see the numbers that are on the screen right there, Salesforce is significantly more expensive from a licensing perspective, right? The one thing that I will kind of specifically state, and I think everybody kind of knows Salesforce is expensive, right? That's just common knowledge. But the one thing to really kind of note on this, Salesforce can get very flexible when it comes to your pricing, right? So like I will straight up say I've been doing this for 13 plus years. I don't know if I can recall a time where one of our customers ever bought Salesforce at the number that you see on the screen, right? They have a number of different dependent factors that go into them building their pricing. So whether it is, hey, how many licenses are you buying, right? Because that obviously increases the cost. How many years are you willing to commit to? Because if you're committing to 5 years versus 2 years, that's a longer term commitment that, they're going to be billing, right? And then also they are a very like cycle driven organization. So end of month is super important. End of quarter is more important. And then end of fiscal year, which like for Salesforce is end of January, is the most important, right? So depending on when you're willing to make that purchase, that drives down your pricing as well. So while Salesforce is absolutely more expensive from a licensing perspective, they are usually pretty willing to negotiate, right? When you look at Dynamics' side of the house, you see it's 2/3 the cost essentially of what Salesforce's list price. Dynamics isn't as flexible. You can work through some pricing things, but you're not typically going to get like a 20-30% discount on Microsoft Dynamics' licensing, whereas Salesforce, you might be able to negotiate your way into that, right? The difference with Dynamics is it is significantly less expensive to start. And they also have some other features that can be really helpful. They have a very, very usable limited type license, which is essentially 1/10 of the cost, right? So not all of your users are going to be on that, but some can certainly do that if you're looking at a read-only perspective. The other big thing that they do is like I talked about how these products have a sales product versus a customer service product, right? With Dynamics, let's say you were a company that needed 25 users to start, right? And 25 of those users were sales users, right? But let's say 10 of those users were also in need of, they manage your customer service side of the house. What's nice about that is if you look at the pricing, Dynamics sells their sales product for $95 per user per month, and they sell their customer service product for $95 per user per month. But if you're one of those hybrid that needs both, then it comes down. And if I have a $95 sales license, I only need a $20 customer service license. It's what they call their add-on pricing, right? So they're really good in that way. And then also too, it's kind of interesting in this space because a lot of these companies don't do that, but Microsoft does actually, they bill monthly, right? So they do want an annual commitment because that actually helps your pricing, but you're not like paying for the full year up front, where Salesforce definitely does go that route more. They've gotten more flexible the last couple of years to where you can do quarterly, and in some instances they'll fight to do monthly, but it's not their standard, right? Dynamics, Microsoft, that is their standard. So while you may be committing to a year, 2, 3 years, it's just a monthly cost that you have to fee. So you don't have to worry about forking over a ton of money at any one time to invest in the software side of the solution. So when you look at it list price, Dynamics is definitely lower cost than Salesforce. Salesforce can be known to get aggressive with that though. And there are their pros and cons of each solution when it comes to the licensing side of the house. So go ahead, Alex. So the next thing we really want to talk about, folks, is like the industry, right? We mentioned this before, like, so go back 5 or 6 years, 7 years, there was Salesforce, there was Microsoft Dynamics, right? That's what there was. And it was, okay, we are a manufacturing organization. We're going to buy Salesforce and it's going to get customized for what we need. We're a nonprofit. We're going to buy Salesforce. We're a healthcare company. We're going to buy Salesforce. It's going to get customized all the way down to what our needs are as an industrialized company. That's a word. Anyways, so that has changed on both sides of the house, right? Both of these companies have become much more focused on industry specific products. And so Anash, I know from the Salesforce perspective, we haven't worked with all of the industry products that Salesforce has, and we haven't on Microsoft either, but we have definitely worked with some. So maybe you can talk a little bit about like what Salesforce has done around there, our experience with implementing those industry specific tools and how that's a good thing, and if there's any kind of constraints with that or issues with that as well.
Sure. So Salesforce calls all its verticals clouds, right? So for example, you have a healthcare cloud, a nonprofit cloud, manufacturing, financial services cloud, etc. And as you can imagine, those are tailored towards those industry specifics, right? So a healthcare organization, they will usually try to tailor them towards healthcare cloud. Now, it doesn't mean that, all of these verticals have a lot of features and they're built to be very generic, right? So what we typically find is, yes, whilst a good 20 to 50% of the standardized healthcare cloud features can be built and used for the healthcare organization, you still have to end up either tailoring it or customizing it to the vertical, right? But at the same time, it does give them a jump start versus just a plain vanilla out of the box CRM system, which they have to completely build from scratch. So those are the kind of pitfalls of what I always tell customers about, that just because they have a health cloud, for example, doesn't mean it's going to perfectly fit for your business. Just bear that in mind. The same goes for nonprofit. We do a lot of Salesforce, what they used to call nonprofit success pack, and where Salesforce actually gives out licenses for free to nonprofits, I think up to 10. And it has a lot of features already baked in that is tailored towards nonprofits. We work with about 10 to 15 different nonprofits on that service. And again, they find that for the most part, the general layout works. A few of the donation tracking, etc., all of that often needs to be customized towards the nonprofit business line and what they're hoping to achieve. And I could go on. The same applies for financial services cloud, another area where we worked with a lot. Again, all organizations are so different that how one organization wants its financial account structured is very different from how another one is. So those are the kind of pros and cons of going with the verticalized approach. But it's just good to be aware that Salesforce definitely has these approaches and they keep building and developing on it. A quick example was during COVID-19, they actually added, in a span of, I believe, 4 months, they quickly added COVID-19 tracking and response time to their healthcare cloud, which wasn't something they had prior to that. So they do respond pretty quickly with making changes to their verticals as well.
Awesome. Rocky, do you have any kind of probably similar thoughts, but anything that Dynamics maybe does a little bit differently from an industry viewpoint?
Yes. Similarly to Salesforce, it has the same verticals of finance and operations, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and nonprofits. They offer special pricing for nonprofits on their licenses. as well. There is also within, like, say, the sales or the customer service app models, there's additional apps that can be downloaded as well that are like banking specific or something like and items like that. Now, I think where Microsoft kind of really has the step up on this is that with Power BI being part of the Power Platform, is that a lot of these verticals come with them very specific reporting needs, right? And they maybe need to bring in data from outside sources as well, and then act upon that data and then display it maybe within Dynamics. Well, with that, Power BI has the ability to connect via API and bring in data from anywhere, basically on the internet, that will allow it, and then display and integrate it within Dynamics as well. Along with that, with these reporting needs come, reports or downloadable or exportable documents. Well, since Microsoft owns Microsoft Office, right? You can utilize Microsoft Word or Excel or whatever you want, and then automatically generate any custom report that you can basically build within one of those two tools, and then export it out of Dynamics, or build a Power Automate flow that'll build that report in Dynamics, even to the point where utilizing Power Automate, if you have a 100% customized document you need to build using something like HTML, you can build that report, which we've done this for multiple clients, 100% within Power Automate using that HTML, and it'll kick out a PDF of that customized document for you.
Awesome. I didn't even know about the industry and how that played into Power BI. That's a really good point. Thank you for informing me, Rocky. All right, cool. Go ahead, Alex. We can go to the next one. So let's talk about some real world case studies, right? And we won't name like client names or anything, but again, the point of this is to kind of talk to you a little bit about the flexibility of these tools, right? And where we help clients, and like we have some specific industry instances listed up here for both products. And Rocky, I'll let you start this time, but like for both of these, there's other obviously industries we worked with before, right? And that's the point, is that these tools are so flexible that no matter what industry you're in, it will work for you, as long as you have the right guidance and implementation partner, I would say, which we'll talk a little bit about later, which is very, very important. So Rocky, I know with Dynamics, I would almost say we're a little focused with Dynamics because we do a lot in the government contracting space, but we've also worked with plenty of other types of organizations on implementing the tool. So maybe you can just talk about some of the use cases that pop up in your head when you look at, hey, what have we done around government contracting client or global consulting organization? Just 30 seconds, a minute on each, some of the examples that we've done. So
yeah, 100%. Well, starting with the government contracting client, we've had so many of these in recent years that we've really kind of honed in on it a little bit. One thing that's always really big with government contracting clients is they want to be able to track their pipeline, right, and their sales. And a lot of that is you want to be able to configure it based upon the P-win or the P-go, no-go, those sort of things, the probability of winning the sale. And we've done a lot of just customization around the sales, customizing sales processes and deliverables, and kind of being able to get accurate pipeline numbers for these organizations, as well as we have other clients that have to generate work orders for people going out and actually doing work on different government sites. And so with those, we have to be very specific about generating the work order, the work that needs to be done, the follow-up on the work, as well as location specific down to the building and the room inside of the building, and being able to map these all out within the system. Another thing that we do with government contracts a lot is lead generation based upon some websites like GovTribe, for instance, where it'll go onto the GovTribe API and it'll pull in leads based upon criteria and then auto generate leads within Dynamics for these customers. And then on the global consulting side or the sales side of things, a lot of this has to do with being able to manage workloads across global size organizations, right? Like how do supervisors be able to follow up with their team members and be able to see what's in their team members' pipeline? Or how do you provide customer service on a global scale across multiple different time zones, right, in different locations around the world? And so being able to build out a unified environment for those things to happen with visibility and security structures in place is something that these customers find very, very worthwhile. right? And the thing about it is, like I've kind of harped on this a little bit already, is that with Dynamics and the Power Platform and Canvas apps, and then also with Power Automate and the over 400 connectors and the custom APIs that you can build reaching out, the extensibility of Dynamics and the customizations that you can do within Dynamics to really mold it to your organization, I think really gives it the heads up, because it's not nearly as rigid as some other models out there.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rocky. That was really descriptive and gives a good insight into some of these industries and some of the like issues that they face that they're trying to leverage Dynamics to solve. So, all right, Anash, well, now it's your turn. So you have some different industries listed there than we had Rocky listed on the Dynamics side. So I see healthcare, law firm, and IT consulting. So maybe you want to take just 2 minutes to kind of give a snippet on some of those use cases that we helped with.
Oh, yeah. So on the healthcare side, for example, we worked with a organization that assists patients get medical treatments and payments and medications for certain ailments. They had Salesforce, and one of the things we built for them is the ability to do an intake, where they actually have an intake form. They go through a nice wizard-based interface, completely built custom within Salesforce. And then the key aspect of efficiency there was those intake forms were scanned automatically in Salesforce using Azure Document Intelligence. So it wasn't like users had to type in all the first name, last name, all that data. It was all scanned, read through a parsing tool that we built entirely from scratch, and has the data automatically populated into Salesforce into the right tables and objects, so that it makes the whole process a lot faster and more efficient. And the key point here is, again, not something that Salesforce would have out of the box, but it's something that can entirely be built on the Salesforce platform and integrate. And ironically, it's using Azure Document Intelligence, so it actually ties into a Microsoft product. So these products are very flexible and can do a lot of things. I'll move on to the law firm client. In this particular this client's case, they actually file protests with the U.S. Customs. And for that, they take massive data sets from large retailers. I won't name them, but you kind of know who the world's largest retailers are. They take protests from them for imports, and they protest import duties for them. So they get large retail data sets. They compare those data sets against known U.S. Customs protestable items, and then they collect those together and file. That entire process was originally being handled by 20 or 30 Access databases. When we took on the client, we consolidated all of that into one big Salesforce database, and we streamlined the process where they could get these data feeds from clients, import them into Salesforce, run them through the engine that handles the protest management, and then generates the protests automatically. Again, not a standard CRM use case, but a wonderful example of how Salesforce or any CRM can actually be tailored and customized to do what your business needs. The last one is a more straightforward use case where we had an IT consulting client, and they wanted to track all their service contracts, their projects, their tasks. They want to do time entry for their consultants, everything else. And again, whilst there are many App Exchange apps out there that would have maybe fit the bill, they wanted something very specific, tailored to their business. So we built out an entire UI and interface within Salesforce that allows them to track this data within their system and yet link up to all their clients, prospects, and opportunities. So it literally, they do the full customer 360 from the time the customer is the lead in their system. It becomes an opportunity. The opportunity becomes a project when it's won. The people log time against the project is tracked. And then once the project is completed, it goes over the sales and the support side, where you can log incidents and cases against the client and assist them on an ongoing basis, looping right back to the next opportunity that the client may have with you. So, but that was a more straightforward CRM use case. But yeah.
Yeah, but those are all very interesting. And what the main thing that I take away from those is all of them sound like they're saving the client significant time and they're gaining those efficiencies, right? And the other thing I found interesting, and Ash, is one of the things that you called out about Salesforce earlier that can be a little bit of a hindrance is if you have a big data set. And what problem did we still leverage Salesforce for? Because that's what the client wanted with the big data set, was that law client. And we got it going, and there couldn't be happier. So
Absolutely.
awesome, guys. All right, Alex, I think we have one more slide, folks, before we kind of open it up to questions, and I'll take this one. Or maybe one more after this. But so one of the things to think about, folks, is like we mentioned, this is not a small thing, right? Rolling out a new CRM is a big initiative, a business changing initiative, right? So it is something that you want to be very consciously focused on as you're going through. And some things to really think about to put in place if you're about to go in and select a new CRM. And this is not in any particular order, just some of the seven things that we think are vitally important. What are your main goals and objectives, right? Why are you doing this? What efficiencies are you trying to gain? Like, what is the purpose for this? What departments is this going to touch? And what improvements is it going to make for those teams, right? So what are your main goals and objectives? Assessing your current state and processes. What tools do you have in place? What processes do you have in place? What are some of those issues that you're facing because of that you hope to gain those efficiencies and get some quick wins back by going with a new system? Obviously, these tools aren't free. So understanding and figuring out, hey, what is our potential budget, not only from a one-time cost to get the system implemented, but also from an ongoing cost for licensing and ongoing support. And number 4, I actually might put this up towards the top because it will fail if you do not have this. Ensuring that you have backing and buy-in from the high-level team members within your organization, right? That is vitally important. If you're not getting that buy-in from the team, if you're not getting the support from that team, if there's not being any accountability held by that team, the likelihood of your CRM rollout failing exponentially increases, right? But also then to creating a CRM team, and that may be someone that is on the higher end of the organization, but then it might be somebody, if it's a sales rollout, a couple people in the sales team. Since it is technology, you might want somebody on the IT team, but people that you classify as this is our CRM team, and these are the ones that are leading the charge to select the product. And after we're implemented, all of that, still kind of those go-tos with the organization that are going to drive future business decisions that internal people can turn to for help, so on and so forth. Identify any potential issues, restrictions that you might have. Again, both of these tools are cloud. They have different things that you need to be aware of around that. What type of security issues do you have? You know, if you're a government contractor working with the DoD, there may be high-end security things that you're worried about that you want to make sure that either of these tools can handle. And then another big one, don't take it all on at once, right? And this is for the implementation and also this initial, trying to select a process or a product, right? We always preach crawl, walk, run, right? Don't put the cart before the horn. What are the most important things you're trying to accomplish here? Let's tackle those first. Separating those nice to haves versus the must haves versus future phases. If you take on too much, it can be too much change management and things can get lost in the shuffle. And again, it can potentially hinder a successful rollout. Obviously, there's other things to think about, but these are the ones that always jump out in our heads for what those best practices are. So go ahead, Alex. So just to wrap up, folks, who wins? We can't give you a great answer there, right? Every use case is completely different, as we've tried to clarify, right? So what I always tell people, you can't go wrong, right? Both of these two, in my opinion, in our opinion, are the two most dynamic, flexible products on the marketplace from a CRM perspective. You can't go wrong with Salesforce, right? Everybody knows what Salesforce is. It's a great tool. You can't go wrong with Microsoft Dynamics, especially if you're a Microsoft shop, right? It makes so much sense if you are a Microsoft shop, for instance. And I don't just mean using Outlook. Rocky talked about SharePoint. Rocky talked about Power BI. And don't get us wrong, you can go with Salesforce if you are using those tools. The connection just may not be quite as snug, right? Whereas if you are on Dynamics and you're using SharePoint, Power BI, you're using Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, all of those things are a lot more plug and play, if you will, because they all reside within the Microsoft suite of products. So, and I know we're running out of time, but I know Anash loves Salesforce. Anash loves Microsoft Dynamics. They would both pick those two tools, but they can also Rocky being a Microsoft background, Anash being a Salesforce background, they can call out those things about their own products that they can see that where, hey, you know, in this instance, Rocky might say, Salesforce, they'd be able to get that up and running and done quicker. And Anash may say, hey, this is super complex. Rocky, your team could go build one of those Canvas apps very easily to do that in Dynamics. So there is no clear winner, folks. It is just more based on your organization. What are you trying to accomplish? And again, utilizing some of those best practices that we just showed on the previous slide are going to be a big portion and a big part of you making sure you are making the right decision for your organization moving forward. So go ahead, Alex. I think, oh yeah, and just real quick, folks, just to touch on again, I know Alex talked a little bit about our company, and obviously we're here to talk about CRM, but we are a full service IT solutions provider, right? So CRM is just one of our 7 business units. We do portal and digital experience. We do CMS platforms. We do big API integration projects with MuleSoft and Boomi, ongoing 24/7 database support, ERP and accounting systems, Atlassian and the ITSM service management systems. So if there's ever an IT need, don't think we can't help, because the likelihood is that we probably can. So we always want to just put that out there, even though we're just talking about CRM today. So, and with that, I know we got about a couple minutes left. So Alex, I don't know if we got any questions in the queue, but go ahead.
Yes, we did. So we just have a couple of minutes, but I think we can get through these. The first question we got in, what's the turnaround time for us adding a CRM?
Rocky, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So caveat with anything is it all depends upon the complexity of the ask and the needs of your organization. I would say an out of the box solution around 3 to 6 months for something that's moderately complex, right? You know, the 3 months being more on the more out of the box simplified type of rollout, 6 months being for your larger, more complex customized rollouts.
Awesome. And then the other question we got in, we tried to implement a CRM system in the past and it didn't really work. What can we do now?
So I'll take that one. So it really comes down to so many factors, right? The success of this CRM system comes down to the players that were involved, how much user involvement there was, pricing, features. It's very hard to answer that question without knowing some of the background into what happened. But what we can tell you is we've had a track record of repeated success over the last 20 plus years of doing CRM. And we've identified these are the key factors, having an anchor person who drives the CRM, having all of those features, having management buy-in, having user adoption and user adoption stories, training, all of that plays a huge factor into the success of the product.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time here. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the webinar today. Thank you to our amazing panelists, our CRM experts, and please don't hesitate to reach out with further questions or if you're interested in working with us. And have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today.